Ryan, let's start with the quarterback, of course. The number one question I have about this Oregon team. There are several questions you can ask. Who's going to start in the secondary? How does the offensive line blend? Who's going to be the leading receiver? There are questions, but the number one question is, what are you getting out of Dante Moore? What is he going to be able to provide, following in the footsteps of two guys that were literally the most experienced quarterbacks in the history of
Ever.
college football, not in the history of Oregon. They don't
Ever.
have the most starts. They have the most starts in their career ever in the history of the sport. Think about it like this. This is a great name pull for me, and I'm sure plenty of others as well. Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel started more college football games each than Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was at Boise State for at least 7 years and started every single game. So I want your thoughts on Dante Moore coming into this year. He's got a bunch of receivers. Kenyon Sadiq should have a good running game, should have everything he needs to succeed. I just look at it as year one, I think he'll be good, and year two, I think he could be great.
Yeah, I think it's all about take day by day and see where you got going on. I love what he's a unicorn. Who else is in the transfer portal and goes to a school and willingly is saying I'm going to sit for a year? That doesn't happen. So I really like what I see about him. He's a prototypical guy. I think he's more of a pocket guy. I think he can really scoot. He can really run. He breaks tackles. He extends plays. He throws from a variety of arm angles. That's what I really like. I like the nerd out sort of stuff about what quarterbacks do in the pocket. This guy throws from a variety of arm angles. That's the thing that we want to see in the NFL now. And if you look at the NFL quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that are most successful, they extend plays. They extend the pocket. They throw from a variety of arm angles. And they get a variety of guys involved. They keep the offense moving. It's not all about run play. It's not all about play action, but you're going to have that. The old days of just having a 7-step drop are over. You're going to have a lot of stuff going on. You have to play action. You have to maybe RPO it before you get out and you stretch out to get the deep ball. This guy's going to have the hand off the ball. He's going to have to throw the check down stuff, the short stuff, intermediate stuff to Kenyon Sadiq, anybody else coming across the middle. And then he's going to have to throw the deep ball every once in a while and make a couple plays. That's really all that's expected of him this year. And so I think he has low expectations on that level. The offense is going to take care of business for him in a lot of ways, put him in a place to be successful. Will Stein's a great play caller. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be absolutely fine. And if he needs to get something with his feet, I think he'll get something with his feet. I think he can really scoot.
Yeah, he said he topped out at like 21 and a half miles per hour. That's moving.
Let's move it.
I don't think that becomes a feature of his game, a primary one. I do think you'll see some moments though, Ryan, where you look up and it's 3rd and 6 and everyone's covered or the pocket breaks down, someone gets beat on a pass rush or a pass protection rep and he's got to bail out to his left or right or scoot up in the middle. He can pick up the first down. I don't think he's going to just suddenly become, old school Mariota or Jeremiah Masoli or Anthony Brown, the way that those guys could really use their legs as like a primary feature. I think having it secondarily is great. His ability to throw on the run is one of the things that made him a really highly rated quarterback prospect coming out of high school. I love that you mentioned the arm angles though, because when I think about what his ceiling would be as a quarterback, I think the answer is Matthew Stafford because, Stafford's not an immobile guy. He's more immobile now because he's older, but
Right.
just a freakish arm talent. And I don't think that Dante Moore has the exact arm, but just the way that he could slice and dice from the pocket, make every throw on the field, go sideline to sideline, corner to corner, throw the deep ball. I think all that potential is really there. And one of the things that I keep coming back to in my head with the Evan Stewart injury, he's not likely to be there at all this season. Maybe he comes back late. He's got Kenyon Sadiq as like the greatest safety blanket of all
100%.
time, maybe because at some respect, unless he's running a 5-yard hitch in a line, even if he runs a 5-yard hitch and a linebacker's on his back, Kenyon Sadiq's one of those guys that can always be open. And I think that connection could be really fun. And then I'll ask you about another one that could be fun.
Well, I agree, and yards after the catch. I think that's the other thing is this offense is set up to get guys in motion, get guys open in space, and let them get some yards after the catch. Kenny Sadiq is one of those guys who, you get the average tight end that ball in the Big Ten championship game, it's a first down. He turns it into a touchdown with a hurdle. There's unique things I think that these guys present. I think that the young guys are going to really show up this year. I think that this is a team that's going to really show the prowess of Dan Lanning and his recruiting. We've been talking about it now for years. Now is the time where a lot of these guys are going to have the opportunity. And an injury, like you said, in the wide receiver room, presents that just opportunity these young guys are going to have.
Yeah, it's not the way you want them to get that opportunity,
Yeah.
but it's also showcasing the importance of why you need to go out and have as much depth at every position as you can, because you never want to have a position group where you feel like you're one injury away from, oh crap, we have a problem. There's a difference in, hey, the guy behind him's not as good. Like, if Kenyon Sadiq were to get hurt, you don't have, that level of a guy behind him in the receiver. Maybe Roger Saliapaga's healthy and has, kind of a similar body type, but nobody's Kenyon Sadiq, right? But you have to be able to survive, one guy going down, so it's not, oh, this is just such a huge weakness now. And I think Oregon has that in a lot of spots, and perhaps nowhere is that more true than wide receiver, where I keep trying to figure out, what's the depth chart going to be? Who are the leading receivers? Who are the top targets going to be? Is it going to be all the young guys? Is it going to be the veterans? Is it going to depend on the week? Is it going to be the veterans at first and then the young guys by the end of the year? And no one excites Oregon fans, or myself, frankly, more in the receiver room than Dakorien Moore, the highest rated receiver commit of all time for Oregon, number 2 all time behind only Kayvon Thibodeau, who of course had an outstanding Oregon career. So pretty lofty expectations for just this year. Forget 2026 and 27, and if he came back for a 4th year, 28. But for 2025, Dakorien Moore, 5-star true freshman, number 1 receiver. What do you think are reasonable expectations for Duck fans to have?
I wouldn't put a certain yardage on it because I don't really know what they're going to do with him. I don't know if they're going to really look for him very often or if he's going to be a big play guy, or I don't really know how that's going to work quite yet. The shakeup in that room is significant, but you pretty much know you're too deep. I feel like this year is a year that Kyler Casper needs to really show up. Justice Lowe needs to really show up. But you also got some transfer. It's going to be an interesting room with the wide receiver group. I tend to think that Dakorien Moore is in a unique place. He's a incredible talent. We know this. And that this is a team that has tried to get young guys involved as much as they can. And this might be the year that you really see a breakout year from a true freshman, which is very rare in especially the wide receiver room. You saw great stuff last year across the board in the national landscape. Alabama, Ohio State, both incredible freshman wide receivers last year.
Cam Coleman at Auburn's another guy.
Oh, incredible! But why not? Why not Oregon? So you got some transfers coming in here. They're going to cloud it up a little bit, maybe. But I would assume that you're going to see Dakorien Moore early and often, just to see what we can do here and to see what kind of splash you can make.
Yeah, I would be over the moon levels of excited if we go out week 1 and Dakorien just goes for 5 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Even though it's against
even though it's against Montana State, a high school highlight reel like his makes you excited. It jumps off the screen. There are a lot of reasons to be excited about him, what his career could ultimately be with the Ducks. I am with you that, I'm in the camp of, all right, I think he's going to have his moments. I don't expect him to put it all together this year. Like Jeremiah Smith did it last year. Okay, that's rare. Go look at Ryan Williams and Camp. And now Coleman's a little bit harder to judge because their offensive passing game was just so incompetent that it's difficult to truly assess. But even then, he's going to have games this year, Dakorien will, where he has 3 catches for 26 yards, and you're like, oh, where do you go? And then he'll be able to make the splash. But I think he'll have a year like Ryan Williams did at Bama, where Ryan Williams had some games where he was 4 catches for 30 yards, didn't do a whole heck of a lot, was doubled down here, whatever. And then he'll have games like Georgia where he makes the play of the game. He's pushing the ball down the field. He had 2 touchdowns called back against Oklahoma that were just freakishly good plays. I think those will arise. I don't know how quickly they will arise, but I think that his talent is just so immense and he's so unique. And no Tez Johnson now, there's an opportunity for him as, you know, a little bit of a smaller wide receiver, kind of in that 5'11" range. There's an opportunity for him to just slide right in and take those snaps. But you got Gary Bryant Jr., you got Justice Lowe, who filled in for Tez last year when he was out with injury, did a good job. They're a lot more experienced. I think that room just overall is in a good spot.